My name is Samantha Day. I am going to be talking about my survival growing up as an Indigenous youth on and off reserve. My grandmother was a residential school survivor, meaning when she turned age 5 and they would place them in a residential school, so they would stay there for a duration of sometimes years. And so my grandmother, she was victim to that. So my grandmother, she removed my mother and her brother from the reserve and moved them to Montreal, Quebec. It was before my 5th birthday actually, and we moved back to the reservation. And we had moved in with a distant family member, and there it was my older sister, my older brother, and myself. My father is non-Indigenous. He wasn't able to stay with us, so he moved hours away. My mother was never around. I don't know where she was. I don't really have much memories of her doing anything with me. It was always my sister. I remember it was just a square home, and we had one bedroom. It was also like a living room / bedroom, and I slept on a cot in the kitchen. During my childhood, there was sexual, physical, and mental abuse that happened. Oftentimes, people that come from the reservations, they're angry, they're hurting. We lack fresh water. We lack access to food, access to clothing, access to proper housing. And substance abuse is very huge in our communities, in our reservations. Most of my childhood, I had lice in my hair, so I was picked on because of that. In 4th grade, I couldn't take it anymore, so I left in grade 4 and I went to the non-Indigenous school. And that is when, because I had moved to the non-Indigenous side, I was hanging around with different people, and I was introduced to drinking and to drugs. I say it started around 11. I was being more promiscuous and I wanted attention any way that I could. When we moved into the new home, my brother and I, we had just mattresses on the floor. I would use my phone, I would use my mom's laptop, and I would go on these. It was called Craigslist. They used to promote like escorts, and then I would get talking to these older men. They would send me gift cards. I was being promiscuous, going out to these teen bars and going out with my friends, and I would meet older men, like even going to the town fair. There was men that would be working there for the weekend at that fair, and I was bringing older adult men home. My mother would be sitting there on the couch on her laptop, and I would just walk in the house with these older men and go straight to my bedroom. My mother never questioned it, never questioned me bringing these men into the house. So when I was 13, I moved out and I moved in with my boyfriend at the time and his family. We were allowed to have sex, and I began trying. He was 16, I was 14. I wanted something to love. I wanted somebody to love, and I wanted somebody to love me. So I decided I was going to bring a child into the world. I conceived when I was 14 and I gave birth at 15. I was a child trying to parent another child. And then from there, we had broken up. I did move in to my own apartment on the reservation, so it was just my daughter and I. But that's when I started partying. We would drink and we started smoking. And that's when a drug called was introduced to me. I got hooked to that right away. So I always had friends over, and that was something new to me. I took it and I ran with it. I really enjoyed it. During that time, I would send my daughter to her father's house. One time I had sent her over and a friend of mine was in Montreal. She says she needed help, and I went to Montreal. Well, I got to Montreal and the person who was supposed to pick me up wasn't there, so I was stranded. So I spent some time in Montreal just on the streets, approximately 4 days. On my 5th day, I was rescued and I got brought back home. And when I got back, I went to pick up my daughter, and her grandparents told me that I needed to contact social development. So I did that, and then they informed me that I was unfit at that time and that they were going to place her in the care of her father's parents. A few months went by. I had 0 supervision. I had no visitations. I had no rights for visitations at that time because I was under investigation because I was a misguided youth back in high school. I did a lot of self-harm. So I was known just in the community on the reservation. So after my daughter was removed from my care, I was in denial. I was angry. I was angry at the world. She was gone for 2 years total. I did do my supervised visits when I was able to. It was about the 6th month of her being gone. I was able to start my supervised visits. At that time, I did not think that I was ever going to be able to recover. I didn't think I was going to see my 25th birthday. So I didn't think I was going to be able to become the mother that I needed to be. So I had decided I was going to give her up for adoption. I had planned my suicide. I lost my home. I had moved off reservation. I felt lost. I felt alone. I had nothing to live for. I remember opening my phone and I plugged it in. I opened up my friend's conversation. I remember, and I started writing out my sorry message to whoever was going to find me when they looked at my phone. but I accidentally pressed send. So I sent to my best friend and she started freaking out. That's what stopped me from taking my life that day. My method was always just cutting myself. I was just planning on cutting my wrists and just sitting there. During that time, I feel like I wasn't thinking about the impact that I was going to leave on my daughter by taking my life. I just wanted to escape it all, While living in that apartment, like after my suicide attempt, I had gotten like a roommate. So him and I would go out to the bars, we would go out drinking. I met these people at a party one time. I found out that one of their fathers was a pimp. And, I was introduced to him that way. I remember the first time meeting him, I took a cab to the next town over and I met him and his wife there in their SUV. I got in the back seat and we just discussed the position. It must have been like a week after. They came and picked me up in my town and drove me to the next town over, and they brought me to this little motel. He brought me up to my room, and remember he sexually assaulted me, and at the end of it he threw money at me. I think my first time I was there for like a good 2 weeks, and I would just stay in my room and he would bring them in. The men would just come and he would sit outside of the motel. I stayed approximately 2 weeks my first time. I don't know how long in between, I don't remember, but I ended up going back. My third time going back, I remember it just didn't feel right. I knew I wasn't supposed to be there. And I remember the pimp really liked me because I wasn't using the money for at that time. I was actually using it to survive. And he would always tell me that, and it made me feel really good, like you're not like the other girls. I remember standing in the mirror and just telling myself, it's for the money, it's okay, like you can do this, you can get through it. But like, I don't know, something just clicked and I was like, no. And I left my room and I remember going to the payphone and I called him and I didn't know he was outside because I wasn't doing a job. And I said, listen, I want to go home. And he said no. Like he wouldn't tell me why I couldn't go home. He just said no. And so I remember hanging up the phone and I went to walk towards my room and there were stairs on both sides. And I remember walking to my room and he came up, like I saw him coming up. So I just took off running. So I remember running down the hall and I just started banging on doors. And this elderly man answered the door and I remember just pushing my way through and running in. And I remember the old man went to slam the door. The pimp put his foot in the door to stop it. And he said, just go hide behind the fridge. I went and I hid behind the fridge. The elderly man left the room with the pimp and then he came back a few minutes later and he said he had taken care of it. There was a friend that lived another town over and her sister had come to pick me up, and they to this day don't know what they saved me from, but they drove me back to my reservation. I still continued. I did work for myself because that's all that I knew. I felt I didn't have any skills. I didn't feel like I would ever amount to anything. Like I was a little res kid. The thought of ever achieving anything or being good, that never crossed my mind because I was never exposed to anything other than the reservation life. I ended up meeting this woman. After that first meet, we never left each other's side. We were young and in love. We hit it off right away. So we ended up finding a place together. We had no jobs, but rent was cheap back in the day and we were both on social assistance, and we ended up getting a place together. I wanted to give my daughter up for adoption because I didn't think I was ever, this girl that I met, she really wanted to have a child. So she convinced me to not give up. She convinced me to keep going. And from there, I decided to become more open-minded. Together, she helped me. I started going to parenting classes. I went to anger management and I enrolled in and I did my GED through my reservation. So 2014, I gained custody of my daughter. I graduated my GED and I was accepted into college to study corrections. So to learn about the Canadian prison system. So after graduating college, I went on to university to study psychology. Working in corrections, I loved working with the clientele, but I did not believe in the way that the system was run. I believe in rehabilitation, and that rarely happens inside of institutions. So I went on to study psychology. I'm still in my third year, but I'm taking a little break from that just to focus on work and to focus on just raising my daughter. I've been working in youth care, personal support work. I've been working in human services for the last 6 years. And while I do love that, I do love the field, I love helping people, I knew that I was meant for more. I think through all the trauma, I sat in my victim mindset for so long. At the end of the day, we are in the driver's seat of our own lives, and it took a lot for me to realize that. I hired mentors, I hired coaches, I started therapy, I started reading self-help books, and I did my personal training certification. I'm working on my nutrition certification. Part of that healing journey is forgiving without ever receiving an apology. So I had joined this coaching program. There was over 1,500 of us ladies in it. A lot of the women would give up and they would drop out of the program. And I started like seeing a pattern, and I wanted to figure out how to bridge that gap between women giving up on themselves and their programs. And after all the research that I've done and observing the way that other programs are run and the way that other coaches and trainers run their programs, I started recognizing that, it's the self-limiting beliefs. That one of the number one issues that women struggle with is self-limiting beliefs. And that is due to just negative experiences that happened in childhood, bullying, family beliefs, family values, just those negative ways of thinking, that mindset that's been ingrained in us just due to past experiences. I believe that with, I say minimal effort, but it's little micro shifts that we can do every day that in time lead to this macro shift that we want to see in our lives. With all the work that I've done on myself, I see how far I've come. I don't want to be another statistic. On our reservations, like, and substance abuse is so huge. So many of our Indigenous sisters are going missing and coming out murdered. And it's all swept under the rug. According to statistics, I shouldn't be where I am today. One thing that I do work on with my ladies is inner child healing. Through my journey, I've allowed my inner child to come out. I've allowed her to go through her feelings and her emotions, and I've held her through that journey. And I am the type of person that I needed during my childhood. I've actually written a letter to myself, and I get my girls to do this as well. We write a letter to our past selves and to our future selves, and we just, telling our past selves, like, what you went through, like, it's not your fault. You were in survival mode all of that time. So what you went through, the choices that you made, do not define the rest of your life. Like, you were okay, you were loved. It's not your fault. It's time to come out. It's time to play. It's time to enjoy the rest of our lives. So I've gone from that 3-year-old scared child who was living in survival mode, that 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old child who was chased off the reservation from being bullied, to being the founder and CEO of my own business, Studio Self-Worth, where I provide a holistic approach to nourishing the mind, body, and soul. So I provide, just support and encouragement and love to these women. I provide the support that I never had, because we all need that. I've learned to love myself to the point where I can now teach other women how to love and how to embrace their lives. My mother and my stepfather had, they wouldn't allow him to have access to us. They would tell him that he was never going to see us again, that, I never really got to spend too much time with him. I feel so empowered by what I have gone through. There's things that I have gone through that I shouldn't have made it through. I'm very grateful for that. I'm very grateful for my life. I choose to perceive it the way that I do now. I choose to embrace my life. I choose to be happy. Life is too short not to be happy, and I want others to see that. I want to teach others how to live happy.